Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys football. The fellas heading to the ACC as one of my favorite teams in the country, and I think a team that is criminally underrated. The Florida State Seminoles go on the road to the Syracuse Orange. This is going to be a really good game, and I want to start off with talking about Florida State and the ceiling that this team has. You saw them week one when they were healthy. They go and beat LSU in New Orleans. This is a team that has a very high ceiling that just has been banged up. They went through a very tough stretch where they were not healthy. They play Wake Forest, they play Clemson, they play NC State. Those are the three teams in the ACC you don't want to see when you're not healthy. But this is a very good team. Before we get into it, though, as usual, just want to say thank you guys for the support you guys have shown the channel. We love making these videos. We love talking ball with you guys in the comments section. So if you do like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let us know in the comments what y'all think about this game. Let's get into it, and let's start with just talking about what we've seen from Syracuse the last couple weeks in a very similar manner. Syracuse has been banged up, and they went and played some of their toughest opponents. Obviously, a Clemson game where they easily could have won that game. They lose to Notre Dame at home where you start the game off with a pick six. You get banged up at quarterback. That's a very, very hard game to win, and then they lose to Pitt on the road where Garrett Schrader's not playing. And when you're looking at this game, when you're making a pick, Garrett Schrader being healthy is very, very important. The ability to extend plays, the ability to run the football that he has helps that offense. He's been accurate as a passer. You take a look at what he's done throwing the football, a guy who barely completed. I don't think he completed over 60% of his passes last year. He's had a 67% completion percentage for 14 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's been really good, and the story of this offense really does go through Sean Tucker. And when Sean Tucker cannot get it going on the ground, that is when you see Syracuse struggling. They struggled mightily against this Pitt team to run. You look at what they did on the ground, 25 total rushing yards. Sean Tucker didn't even average 2 yards per carry. They gave up 6 sacks. They kind of got beat up front. And if you're looking at this Florida State team, a Florida State team that is getting healthier on the defensive line, that is really where it matters and where they need to win this football game if they want to go beat Florida State at home. Now you take a look at what Florida State's done and what Syracuse is going to want to do. Florida State, very good against the run, and this has been something that Florida State has not been very good in the past. The linebacker play, the defensive line play hasn't been great. This is a very, very different story. The transfer Tatum Bethune, he's been phenomenal for Florida State. I was very excited to see how he meshed in it. He's a guy that at UCF was a tackling machine, and it's a position they haven't been very good at. You get a guy experienced like him. He's been phenomenal, 58 tackles on the year. Kalen DeLoach has been very good. DJ Lundy has been very good. Akeem Dent. The linebacker play is much improved, and I think that's largely because of how good you are on defensive line. Jared Verse, he's another guy that we did when they went through that tough stretch with Wake Forest, NC State, Clemson. Jared Verse wasn't healthy. He was playing in some of those games, but he clearly wasn't healthy. After that bye week, and that's what we said, they get through that gauntlet, they get a bye week, they get their guys right. This team's very dangerous. You look at what Jared Verse has been able to do. He's been an absolute menace in the backfield. 12 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. He's a bona fide, legitimately one of the best pass rushers. He's a guy that you were excited about. This guy was a freak athlete coming from SUNY Albany. Might need a year or two to develop to legitimately maybe a first-round draft pick. And when you look at replacing a guy like Jermaine Johnson last year, Jared Verse has done that, and he's done it at a high, high level. This Florida State defense is much more physical than we're used to seeing. Guys like Robert Cooper, been very, very good up front. And then in the back end, guys like Jamie Robinson. I like this Florida State defense a lot, and if Garrett Schrader is not 100% healthy or if he does not play, I really have a hard time seeing Syracuse move the football, especially if they cannot develop that run game. And Florida State, again, has been very good stopping the run, and what they did against Miami and the confidence that this Florida State Seminoles team has under Mike Norvell is massive. It's another thing we've been talking about a lot. This Florida State team at a certain point just kind of lost their swagger. Florida State was on top of the world for a very long time under Jimbo Fisher. At a certain point, they just didn't think they could win games. I think you see that Florida State swagger coming back, and you saw it Saturday night in Miami where they absolutely took them to the, what are we going to call it, woodshed. Now, flipping sides, you look at what Florida State tries to do on offense. They're a team that historically has struggled to have a consistent offense, especially with Jordan Travis, who has really developed as an accurate passer. And I think that's why you're seeing Florida State have so much success now on offense. Before this year, they've been really relying on those explosive plays, which to Mike Norvell's credit, they were very, very good at finding some explosive plays. But in terms of consistency, in terms of moving the chains and establishing drives on a regular basis, it wasn't really there. You're seeing that now. And Jordan Travis, now in his 5th year of college football, is really, really starting to put it together. And before the season, we said this team goes as far as Jordan Travis goes. And even a guy like Jordan Travis was not 100% healthy. And you saw it. He was not using his legs as much. Florida State was very, very hesitant to let him use his legs. He's seemingly 100% healthy, or not 100% healthy, but he's seemingly much more healthy. And you're seeing that in his game. I mean, he's completed 63% of his balls, 17 touchdowns. He's only thrown 4 interceptions. He's taking care of the football a lot better. But the biggest story is they are running the football very, very well. They have a committee of backs who are very good. Trey Benson, Lawrence Tufali, the 2 guys who have had to step up with Trayshawn Ward not playing. Both guys, Trey Benson, averaging 7 yards per carry. Lawrence Tufali averaging 4.5 yards per carry. But that does not tell the whole story, as Lawrence Tufali is an absolute dog coming out of the backfield. My take on this game is that I struggle to see Syracuse consistently score points. Syracuse on defense, very, very stingy. You look at what they have on the defensive side of the ball. I think they have one of the better linebacker groups in the country. Guys like Mikel Jones, guys like Marlo Wax, guys that get behind the line of scrimmage. They get tackles for a loss, and they go sideline to sideline and make plays. Can they stop this Florida State rushing attack? Because that is what Florida State is trying to do. You have to bring in another safety, and then they kind of hit you over the top with Ontario Wilson, with guys like Johnny Wilson. That's going to be the story. Syracuse has been very solid against the run this year. That being said, they're banged up on the defensive line. And at a certain point, there's only so much linebackers can do. If you have your front 4 just kind of getting dominated a little bit, is what is Syracuse has been given up lately, as they've been kind of banged up. They're having 2s and 3s up there on the defensive line. There's only so much guys like Mikel Jones and Wax can do to stop the run. If Florida State can establish the run in this game and then get some safeties in, and then get Johnny Wilson, then get Ontario Wilson, then get Micah Pittman, guys like that over the top for some explosive plays, it's a very, very dangerous Florida State team. Getting to the pick, you're going on the road to JMA Wireless Dome, formerly known as the Carrier Dome. You guys know I'm from Rochester, New York, so I've been there plenty. The environment, it gets very loud. It gets very rowdy in there. That being said, I just think you're seeing a Syracuse team that is banged up. You're seeing a Florida State team that is seemingly hitting their stride. You look at what they've done since the bye week. They go out and blow out Georgia Tech. They blow out Miami. This Florida State team is looking like they were in the beginning of the year when they were beating a team like LSU. They're 100% healthy. Jordan Travis, very accurate. They're hitting their explosive plays. They only have to cover inside of a touchdown at -6.5. That is my lean. It's actually one of my favorite picks of the slate, just because I think this Florida State team is a faster team. I think they're the more physical team. And I think they're the more talented team. And right now, they're the healthier team, and they're the more confident team. If you're going off trends, Syracuse has lost their last 3 games. They've really struggled on the offensive side of the football in the last 2 games, especially on the road at Pitt last week. You look at Florida State, dominant on defense and have scored 40 points in the last 2 games against Georgia Tech and on the road at Miami. Give me Florida State to cover the touchdown. I just think this is a tough spot for Syracuse to be banged up in. That's kind of what we talked about with Florida State. They went through their hardest part of the schedule when they weren't healthy. Now they're fully healthy. They get some games where they're very winnable. Syracuse, on the other hand, in some of their biggest games, they're not having some of their studs 100% healthy. If they can't get Sean Tucker going on the ground, I find it very hard for the Syracuse team to move the football. And this isn't that I hate a Syracuse team. I actually have been very, very impressed with how they've looked this year. This was a team that I was not very high on. I just don't think they have the dogs right now. I don't think they're healthy enough. And on the other hand, I absolutely love this Florida State team and how they've looked the last couple of weeks. Feel pretty good about this Florida State game. I think they cover the 6.5 points. It's going to be a good one. And again, close it out on that. Wanted to keep it short for you guys. Again, if you like the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We really do appreciate y'all, and we'll talk to y'all later.